What's up, guys? D-Rock 1992 here. For this next video, I'm going to be reviewing the sequel to The Expendables, the first sequel, The Expendables 2. The Expendables 2 came out in 2012, and it returns much of the same characters from the first movie. Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, Terry Crews, Jet Li, although he doesn't have a major role in this movie. Dolph Lundgren, in kind of more advanced, more of a role, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis, who were in cameos in the first movie. They kind of have a broader role in this movie. Some new characters to tell you about. Jean Claude Van-Damme plays the villain, the main villain in this movie. Liam Hemsworth plays a young member of the Expendables team. And Chuck Norris actually is in this movie. He plays a rogue guy named Booker, a friend of Sylvester Stallone's character Barney Ross. But this movie came out in 2012. It got a 65% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a pretty good review. They got it right. They got it pretty right on this one. I would have given it higher, but I'll give my own review later on. Anyway, this movie starts out with the Expendables crew. Barney Ross, Jason Statham's character Christmas, his last name's Christmas, Terry Crews, Liam Hemsworth, Randy Couture's character, and all the Expendables team. They have to go to, I think, Somalia is the place where they go. They have to rescue this Chinese official from an army basically. The Expendables do rescue this man. They also rescue another guy who is revealed to be Trench Mauser, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character. It's like, they rescue him. Trench Mauser in the first film is a rival of Barney Ross. So they don't really like each other all too much. So they reluctantly save him. And that's that, really, for the first kind of part of this movie. There's a guy named Mr. Church, who is played by Bruce Willis. He contacts, Bruce Willis reprises his role as Mr. Church. Mr. Church contacts Barney Ross and tells him get his team together. You have to go get a weapon, or actually a computer, basically a small computer from an airplane, essentially from a crashed down airplane. Barney Ross reluctantly agrees. He brings his team out. And there's this other girl, too. Her name's her first name's Maggie. I forget who the actress is playing the girl, but she's a computers expert, and an expert on coding what the computer is all about, essentially. So they retrieve the computer, and all goes according to plan when suddenly Jean Claude Van Damme's character comes in, villain, basically villain, essentially. His name's Villain. He and his larger force than Barney Ross's men, they come and they steal the computer from Ross and his men, and in the process they kill the young guy, Liam Hemsworth's character. His name was Billy the Kid. They kill Billy the Kid, and Barney Ross is enraged, basically. He is so angry, and he wants revenge on Villain for doing this. So they go on the adventure, basically. They go on the adventure to defeat Villain and his men, kill them all, and they have to do some reconnaissance work first, and they discover that this computer, actually encrypted in the computer, is the location of 5 tons of plutonium that Vallon and his men want to dig out. It's actually dug up in the ground in this mine. Vallon enslaves these villagers, these male villagers, and makes them dig the plutonium out, essentially, so that he and his men can get the plutonium and sell it to the highest bidder. In some weapons manufacturing, weapons distribution, stuff like that. So that's basically the big plan by Vallon. The Expendables along the way meet resistance from Vallon's army. He has pretty much a small private army. And they defeat the forces with the help of Booker, who is played by Chuck Norris. And they ask Booker if he wants to join their force. Booker says I work alone, essentially. And that's that with that. He does tell them, though, Booker does tell the Expendables that there's a group of villagers, a group of women villagers nearby who could help the Expendables with their mission. And they do. The women villagers, they tell the story. Their men were abducted, essentially. They're coming after the children next, so the women are armed to protect the children. And so the villagers, they kind of they help out the Expendables. Certainly, the Expendables do the job for the villagers. They invade the mine. The Expendables invade the mines, and a large battle ensues. Essentially, the men are rescued. The village men are rescued, but Vallon and his men make it so that the Expendables and the villager men are trapped in the mine. Eventually, though, Trench Mauser and Mr. Church rescue everybody, and they're all rescued. They're out of the mine, and then Trench Mauser, Mr. Church, and all of the Expendables and the Maggie girl, they all go to an airport where Vallon is going to escape with the plutonium with his men, and they engage in a huge all-out battle, all-out action right here. This is what the Expendables movies are really all about. Action, action, action. So, the men are eventually all defeated. Vallon engages Barney Ross in a big showdown, and Barney Ross eventually kills Vallon. How did he kill him? By a... Either way, I can't really remember how he kills Vallon, but he does. He gets revenge for Billy the Kid's death. And essentially, that's the mission. Essentially, that's it. Maggie returns to Trench Mauser and Mr. Church. Their service returns to Mr. Church's service. And essentially, that's the movie, basically. I think The Expendables 2 is better than The Expendables 1. Because you see more emotion in this movie. The Expendables movies really don't have a ton of character development. I mean, you don't go into an Expendables movie, sit, and expect yourself to cry, feelings and emotions and all that kind of stuff. These movies are all about action. These are full-out action movies. But there was a little more character development than in the first. There was more emotion. You felt the Expendables, you felt what the Expendables were trying to do. what they wanted, getting revenge for Billy the Kid's death. You felt that that's what they wanted to do. The first movie went too slowly. As I said in the first review, it went too slowly, This movie was longer, definitely. At least it felt like it was longer. And one drawback, however, was that Jean Claude Van Damme's villain was not as good as the first villain, the first movie's villain played by Eric Roberts. Jean Claude Van Damme's villain just wasn't as dynamic. I didn't really. He was okay, but I really didn't like him all that much. I didn't really like the character all that much. But that really is the only complaint I have of the movie. I think it was very good, very well written, emotional movie as well as an action-packed movie. It combines the two together. I'm going to give the movie a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's the same review as the first Expendables movie that I gave. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. The same, but this movie is better than the first one. And that essentially is it for my review. D-Rock 1992, out.